Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, bringing you practical, timely, and accurate insight so that you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, December 1st, episode 207. Today, true, Missouri is not a right-to-work state. Some might say they pushed all their chips into the pot to become a right-to-weed state. What does this mean to you and your workplace? Should you update your policies? Change background check procedures? Anticipate increased workers' comp and unemployment claims? Sergeant Tyler Jenkins revisits the show to share tips on recognizing common signs of being under the influence of the wacky tobacco. And as always, we'll cover all the breaking news you need to know. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right. Good morning. Welcome back to the program. We're happy to have you after Thanksgiving. We have officially kicked off the holiday session. Oh, my goodness, Burt. Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you after a late night at the AIM holiday party. We saw so many friends and members of AIM and clients of Ogletree. And I heard so many wonderful compliments about this program, far and exceeded over anything else people were complimentary of. And I just got to say, Burt, thank you for what you do all the time to help our members. I know many of them are your clients. And producer Nick, it was great to see you there with some of your clients and our members. And wow, I just got to keep these glasses on. These lights are very bright this morning. That's all I can say.
Phil, what's going on here? I mean, you look like you're feeling the effects of the party last night. And I will point out that membership does have its privileges. I know that some of our listeners on the program are not necessarily AIM members, but it is important when you join up and you get invited to parties like last night. It makes for a really good time.
And I just want to point out, we did follow all the advice, or most of the advice, some of the advice, maybe not much of the advice that we gave the other day on our pre-holiday party. But it was a great party, several hundred people. And, you know, I was just thinking through it, and it's like on the way to the drive in this morning, all I could think of is, you know, why do we do this? And I think that party pulls together exactly why I do this. And it's for a cause much more than just managing work. It's really about creating a responsible community and helping businesses be better. That helps people have jobs. That helps people live better lives. And that, for me, is the thread that weaves in and out of it all. And it's what motivates me every day to help people be better and do better in life by having stable employment. So to all of our members that were with us last night, and for the many that said they couldn't join us, please come back next year and we'll see you then. And it was a great time.
Phil, I appreciate you saying that you followed the recommendations that I've been making on the program about good behavior at parties. But, you know, we did manage to find an example of inappropriate behavior at the party last night. And I think Nick's got an image to share with everybody. And
I've got to tell you, I'm not even prepared what that is, but I may have to take my glasses off to see it. All right, let's see what we got.
There's an image from the party last night. You could see somebody there hugging somebody else at the party last night, bare-chested with kisses all over his face and everything. And you know, again, despite my best recommendations on avoiding offensive behavior at a holiday party, Phil, I could see you're turning red here that others may not be able to see. But yeah, so again, for all you folks out there who listened to the program the last couple of weeks about appropriate holiday party behavior, don't necessarily follow Phil's guidance there, but follow my recommendations.
Oh, no, that is good. There's a story behind that, and I will tell you that has been highly doctored up. That is for sure. The only thing that might be true on that is the chest hair. I'm not sure. All right, but let's get on. That's not why people have joined us this morning. We want to welcome them back post-holiday of Thanksgiving. All right, we have to get to Lawyer on the Clock. We have our friend of the program, Master Sergeant Tyler Jenkins, with us today. We're excited to have you back to the program, Tyler. Thank you for being here. I do want to point out on February 16th, Master Sergeant is going to be a part of the program that Burt and I are hosting here at the AIM office. That will be a simulcast program, so that will allow you to participate in person or virtually. And it will be a party of three: Burt, myself, and Tyler Jenkins, as we are going to help you manage the right to weed in Missouri. And it's going to be a great program. Today will be a little bit of a prelude to that. And let's get things kicked off first with Lawyer on the Clock.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
Go for
All right,
it, Burt.
We are ready to roll here. So the first thing I want to talk about today is President Biden's pick for the top EEOC attorney got Senate panel approval. A Senate panel, not the full Senate, but the Senate panel approval just 2 days ago. And I think this is very significant. This was a 12-10 vote. The committee passed the nomination of Karla Gilbride as the EEOC's top attorney. There was one Republican who voted in favor of Gilbride. It was Senator Susan Collins from Maine. That position has been vacant since March of 2021 when President Biden fired Trump-appointed Sharon Gustafson. And the EEOC counsel, the reason why I think this is important is the EEOC general counsel is responsible for overseeing the agency's 15 regional attorneys. And the general counsel has the ability to stop or continue litigation that those regional attorneys initiate and to present certain cases to the commission for a vote. And so I think if she advances with full Senate approval, eventually you'll see that that will make the EEOC a little bit more aggressive. They've been kind of quiet during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, but I do think with the change in chairs at the EEOC that we've talked about before, along with the new general counsel, you'll see the EEOC starting to become more aggressive. Yeah. Next, Phil, is also just in the last day, the Senate Health, Labor and Pensions Committee, that same committee voted 13-9 to advance the nomination of Jessica Lumen, who had been serving as the top official at the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor, to be the permanent administrator of the agency. Her nomination had been held in the committee for several months and likely will now progress to a full vote in the Senate, probably before the current congressional term expires. I will say that Lumen has probably been a fairly stabilizing force at the Department of Labor during her tenure. Investigations have continued, but without a lot of the rhetorical excesses that wound up dooming the previous nomination of David Weil, the Wage and Hour Division Administrator in the Obama administration. So I do think that her advancement through the committee and eventually probably through the city, through the Senate, will allow some of the proposed regulations amending the salary threshold.
Burt, I just want to point out to everybody, you were at the party last night as you're getting tongue-tied this morning.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Folks of that. Okay.
I'm trying to stick to my time limit here, Phil. So amending the salary threshold and possible other changes to the regulations defining exempt executive, administrative, and professional employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So keep your eye on those two picks. The other thing I want to talk about real quickly is retirements. The Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell yesterday said that the shortfall in labor force participation in the U.S. relative to pre-pandemic trend is mostly due to excess retirements. That's what the Fed chair has said, and he expects that that's going to reverse anytime soon. I'm not so sure I agree with that. The quote from him was that some of the participation gap reflects workers who are still out of the labor force because they are sick with COVID-19 or continue to suffer lingering symptoms from previous COVID infection. I sent a chart that hopefully Nick's going to put up on the screen here that shows the labor participation shortfall, which is well below pre-pandemic levels. This is from the U.S. Department of Labor, nothing that I've created myself. This is actually from the Department of Labor that shows that there are still well in excess of what they have said is maybe 2 million to 3.5 million people from the labor force. Other studies I've read have put that number closer to 5 to 6 million. But either way you slice it, there are a lot of people who still are not in the workforce, and it's interesting that the Fed chair is blaming that on retirements. I also sent,
Burt, I do agree with that. I do think a lot of that is on retirement and not necessarily participation. I know I shared some information at your conference a few weeks ago on that. There is a lot of data that really just says, I just want to remind people, we are not going to have a correction to the availability of labor for, at least in my opinion, with the data that I see, and I'm going to project out over 20 years. I know that's a long time and a lot can happen with the economy, but should our economy stay strong, we are not going to see an abundance of employment opportunities. We will continue to have a labor shortage that will only grow increasingly worse from where we're at gradually over the next 20 years.
Well, and that's an excellent point, Phil. I did send another chart to Nick that Nick can put up. This is from ADP. Businesses payrolls rose last month by 127,000 total. That was well short of a Bloomberg survey of economists that thought that there would be more than 200,000 jobs added. One way to cool off the hiring is to put the country into a recessionary period, or at least stagflation, inflationary period. And you could see from this chart that manufacturing had a net loss of 100,000 jobs last month. Leisure and hospitality led the way with an increase of 224,000, but the net effect was there were only 100,000 jobs added to the economy last month. So kind of interesting data. And again, workers who stayed at their jobs experienced a 7.6% pay increase from a year ago, according to ADP. For those who changed jobs, the median increase in annual pay was 15.1%. So that shows kind of what we've been talking about on the program for a while, that it's hard to find employees and it's hard to keep your good employees.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I know friend of the program is on every couple months, Mikey Mack, our compensation expert. He would tell you that, we're seeing anywhere between 5 and 7% general wage adjustments that have occurred over this year. And he does not anticipate that cooling off either, at least through the first quarter of next year, as people are looking for January 1 info and so on. So another important fact to point out. Burt, anything else to wrap up on before we move on today?
Yeah, I'm going to go over my time a little bit here, Phil, but I just want to point out that the race to preempt a nationwide rail shutdown, which really would have impacted the economy even more as we're moving into this really we've been in this high inflationary period. But the rail workers had threatened to shut down just before Christmas. The House passed legislation yesterday, 290 to 137, forcing implementation of a labor agreement that was hammered out by the rail companies, certain labor leaders, and the president's administration months ago, but rejected by workers in 4 of the 12 unions. The fear of another supply chain meltdown really overcame opposition in the House, with 79 Republicans joining 211 Democrats to pass the stop strike measure. There are some disagreements really among the Democrats that have spilled into the public view as a path to compromise in the Senate emerged. Speaker Pelosi sought to corral Democrats at the last minute by adding a supplemental bill that would give rail workers 7 days of sick leave. but because it would come out as a separate vote, it would allow lawmakers to move without the tentative agreement if needed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the Senate there.
Yeah, I look forward to chatting more about that next week. I think there's a lot of things to talk about when our government starts to take place of and take control of the outcome of labor agreements, which I know isn't completely new, but something definitely to chat about. Let's go through today's poll question, Burt. Great job on our lawyer on the clock. Here is the question. We'd love to get your feedback and your comments. I can already see comments coming in. I know there's going to be some tough decisions here. I know which one I think is going to be most complicated to deal with, but that is, what are your biggest concerns about dealing or about changing marijuana laws as an employer? So what do you think the biggest concerns are for us as employers? One is safety concerns. Two is training supervisors to spot impairment. Three is new policies, procedures, followed by recruiting and retention. And maybe a very important question is keeping enough snacks in the break room. All right, so we'd like to get your feedback on that. And let's move on to Phil Burt's Forum.
You've just entered Filbert's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
All right, Burt, we have entered a new age when one of the wealthiest men on the earth, also maybe one of the brightest individuals in our current time, is viewed here. Elon Musk smoking weed in his podcast. I forget the podcast. Nick, help me out. Who was that?
I don't know the podcast.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll think of it in just a second. I'm drawing a blank, but this definitely sends a different signal to people when this is the case. I can't imagine Warren Buffett doing this for his investors and business partners and so on, and also with the image that Warren Buffett has had over the years. But Elon brings a little different twist to that, and I think that's the space and time we find ourselves in today, particularly at work. Now, I do know Elon's board was not happy with him. I did see a post interview where he said, yeah, they gave him a lot of flack on it. But while he is a member of the board, I still think in the end, he's the boss and he does what he wants to do. We got another picture here, Nick, to talk about. One of my favorite people, Snoop Dogg. I think, what do you say? Murder was the rap they gave me, or the case they gave me.
Murder was the case they gave him.
Murder was the case they gave me, right? An old gangbanger, made himself very popular with rap music, has done a great job turning his life around and done some good things in life as well. And everyone's friend, Martha Stewart. And we know these two are good friends, and what a contrast of personalities that is as well.
Well, and let's be fair here. Martha Stewart's done a wonderful job turning her life around as well. I mean, she was famous for a while. She did serve prison time for something. What was it? Insider trading or
insider trading?
Yeah. So she seems to have reformed her life just like Snoop Dogg, and she is on the path to recovery as well. And indeed, they make strange bedfellows, but God love them. They apparently really do like each other.
They apparently do, and more power to them. I love it. We got one more. We got a clip to play here, Nick.
We do.
Let's play the clip.
Short one.
Hey,
roll down your window.
What? Keep on knocking, but you can't come in.
Hey, man, don't man. The cops, man.
Oh, all right. That is actually one of my favorite scenes from the movie Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke. And that is the perfect segue to Master Sergeant Officer Tyler Jenkins, who is our guest today. And Tyler, I just got to ask, have you met that person along the highways of Missouri at any point?
Yes. Not that they would remember. Yes, it has happened.
Yeah, I can only imagine the stories you all must tell in your break room about who you've pulled over, and you won't believe this one. Maybe we'll leave some of those stories as a teaser for our program coming up, but that is just a hilarious scene. I've always loved it ever since I was a kid. All right. So second time back on our program, you're going to be available with us here in the office on 16th. I'm excited to have our members get a little bit more exposure to the knowledge and the good things that you're doing. Can you just start out by just telling us what is it, Tyler, that it is that you're doing for the Missouri State Highway Patrol? Tell us a little bit about your role, and then we'll get into some of the questions.
Yeah, so in 2009, I was certified through the International Associations of Chiefs of Police as a drug recognition expert. So a little over 13 years I've had that title. Back in 2009, it was kind of a newer thing. Most of our impaired driving cases dealt with alcohol. And slowly over time, we've seen the need for more and more certified officers to become drug recognition experts and have that ability to recognize roadside impairment through various types of drug categories. We do certify all of our troopers through what we call an A-RIDE course, which stands for Advanced Roadside Impairment Drug Enforcement. So it's a little bit a tier below what a drug recognition expert is, but it does give kind of a baseline for all of our troopers to kind of spot those signs or symptoms.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So last time you were on a program, and I'd like to be able to show it again if we have it, Nick. Tyler was talking about the flickering of the eye as one of the tests that can be identified in the impairment process, and this video was very popular. I think we should show it again if we're able to. And maybe Tyler, after we watch this, you can talk a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Sure. I think what Nick's showing you right there is another video that I gave him. It's a rebound dilation. So if we look at the eyes and think about like a lens of a camera where it focuses, the pupil, the dark part of our eye, is doing that as well. When we have light shine onto it, it closes, contracts, doesn't want a lot of light. With marijuana, that eye wants to dilate. So you can see there in the video, or the war within itself of that eye saying, I want to stay closed. No, I want to go open due to the marijuana. So that's what you're seeing there. The eyelid tremors, I know, was what we talked about last time. And that was that eyelid fluttering type thing, the involuntary fluttering of those eyelids.
That was when someone was trying to close their eye, maybe gently close their eye. It was hard for them to do and created a fluttering. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Phil.
Yeah. Now, does your eye pupil dilate like this when you're under the influence of alcohol? Do people behave differently, or is it the same behavior? So it's hard to determine if someone was maybe impaired from alcohol versus impaired from marijuana.
Yeah. So with alcohol, I'm sure many of us have, if not all of us, have seen the officers with their finger up at the side of the road, looking into somebody's eye. And in that situation, we're looking for nystagmus. We're not actually looking at the pupil like that last video. So alcohol does not affect the pupil size. Pupil size will stay the same. But cannabis on the flip side can affect the pupil size, make them dilated really nice and wide, or then even struggle to find the closing of that.
Okay, very good. Is there any other significant difference between an alcohol impairment and a marijuana impairment that would be interesting for the group to know?
Difference wise, they can look similar. Absolutely. It depends on a level of tolerances, as we talk about in our, hopefully on the 16th, we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But as far as looking for similar things for field sobriety tests, there's distinguishable things between alcohol and cannabis that you can actually say, no, that's strictly down the line of an alcohol impairment, or that's strictly down the line of a cannabis impairment.
Okay. Yep. I think that's the important part of the training, is recognizing what kind of impairment we may be dealing with. And just a quick question. I know there are some many questions I get asked this question many times. Let me start over again. It was a long evening. Are we close at all to any kind of impairment testing to determine marijuana impairment like we have for a blood alcohol content test?
So when Colorado legalized weed in 2014, they did put a nanogram level, kind of like we do with alcohol, in a per se level. For alcohol, it's 0.08. What we found with marijuana is it's very unique in that, especially with the passing of Amendment 3 recently, we did not put, or they did not put specifically a nanogram level in there, because every person can have a different tolerance to that marijuana. And they did a study which was fascinating, just different types of blood levels that they used as a subject who was smoking weed consistently for 10 minutes. And they used a subject who didn't smoke, but one hit off of a marijuana pipe or whatever it was. And they found that no matter what it was, whether it was a consistent smoking or a infrequent smoking, that the nanogram levels dropped immediately after 2 hours to below that per se level for Colorado. So what they had to do was obtain a blood sample within 2 hours of the last time that they smoked, or they were never going to have a nanogram level, even if they were really highly impaired, that they were never going to have a nanogram level at that per se limit.
Okay, so not highly effective at determining impairment then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily impairment, but not effective of saying that it's that per se of, hey, if you're at this nanogram level, you are absolutely impaired.
And let me take a second. So, Master Sergeant Jenkins, we appreciate everything you're saying, because I think you're hitting the difficulty there for employers, and that is the way the law has been set up. There are exceptions in the new law. This new amendment specifically provides protections to employees who have a medical marijuana card. But the key is that it still allows employers to discharge employees who are quote unquote under the influence of marijuana at work. And that's, as I've said a million times on this show, that's really where the rubber meets the road here, is what does it mean to be under the influence? And I did send Nick some slides. Nick, you can put those up real quickly. These are things we'll cover in much more detail when we go through the program on the 16th. And what I've done is I've given Nick a checklist here. Nick, if you can kind of slowly scroll through those. This checklist really shows what the indicia of impairment are, the indicators of impairment that HR folks can look for. And these are the things that you as an HR professional would want to have your frontline managers trained on, so that they can at least pick up on what these indicators of impairment are. And by using a checklist, once you have evidence through these indicators of impairment that somebody might be under the influence at work, then you can go ahead and either send the person for a test, or if you tell them you're going to send them for a test, they may admit that they're under the influence of marijuana, number one, or number two, they might refuse to go to the test. So the indicators of impairment, along with the refusal to submit to a test, would be sufficient to support a termination. Or if they go to the test, and one of the listeners asked the question here, what do you do with a positive test? Well, the indicators or the indicia of under the influence plus the positive test should, and again, I stress the word should be sufficient to support a termination or disciplinary decision. The test in and of itself, again, is not going to necessarily show that they're currently under the influence, but you combine the test with those indicators of impairment, the indicia of impairment, and then you have something upon which to base a defense that you lawfully terminated the employee.
Yeah,
I also
would point out that must work very carefully with the in parallel with the way your policy is written. That has to be carefully matched for your workplace, particularly when we're talking about the separation of a medical approved card holding marijuana user and a recreational user. And the rules you have in the workplace may be different depending on the work environment.
And that's exactly right. And the difference in the new law is that for somebody who is just a recreational marijuana user, you cannot discriminate against somebody based on their lawful off-duty conduct. So as long as that conduct remains off-duty, they're allowed to smoke marijuana. It's once they come to work and they're under the influence, the recreational marijuana user has no protection once they're under the influence at work. The medical marijuana user, you probably still, if they're using medical marijuana before you discharge, you probably should still go through the ADA's reasonable accommodation interactive process discussion with the employee. But keep in mind, they don't have the right to be under the influence at work, even if they have that medicinal marijuana card. So these indicia of impairment are critically important, and everyone's going to learn a heck of a lot more from Master Sergeant Jenkins than they will from me on this issue on the 16th.
All right, let's just go. Beth, thank you. It is the Joe Rogan show. That is where Elon Musk sampled marijuana. So I just want to point that out. Also, Greg, thank you for your comments. Martha's been to prison. Snoop has not. So that's important to also point out. And Deborah is asking, can Tyler name some other distinctions of marijuana and impairment? And that answer is yes. We will get into that. You'll have to come to the program for it because we are out of time. Nick, I want to see the poll chart real quick so people have that. And then we will sign off. I will encourage you to keep an eye out for the invitation to participate in the impairment program that Burt and I and Tyler are hosting. We really believe it's going to be well worth your time and energy to attend that in person or virtually. So the leading purpose that people are concerned with here is safety concerns. I think that goes without saying. Most of us just want people to go home in the same condition that they came, or go home healthy and safe. Maybe not in the same condition they came to work in, depending on how they came to work. But then, of course, we have training and then recruitment and retention issues. I think we're finding our way through that pretty well today. No one's worried about snacks in the break room. Maybe we should put that on our radar.
I think most already have that under control.
You got that under control. Master Sergeant Tyler Jenkins, thank you. We look forward to seeing you on the 16th. We appreciate everything you and your colleagues do for the great state of Missouri and the state troopers across our nation and our other locations, Missouri, Indiana in specifically. Burt, thank you very much. Producer Nick, thank you. We will see everyone back here Thursday, 7:30 Central Time.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.